Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just give it a minute while everyone starts to join the webinar. Okay, we've got our numbers piling in, but I know we're going to have a lot to get through in such a short time, so let's get started. Good afternoon. My name is Liz Deepers and I'm hosting this webinar on behalf of Oracy. Thanks for joining us today. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the unceded sovereign lands of Aboriginal people. We acknowledge the traditional custodians and their enduring connection to its lands, waters and skies. I pay my personal respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In solidarity, Oracy supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the need for truth-telling about the history and impact of colonisation. We treasure the rich and diverse customs of First Nations people, the valued knowledge holders, leaders and partners in creating the conditions for all our children to thrive. Please feel free to acknowledge the country you're joining from in the chat. Can everyone hear me? I've got someone that's just popped up in the chat to say they can't hear me. Okay, I've got thumbs up, so I'm just going to go ahead. So we're thrilled to have you join us today for this important session that's showcasing the nest, to provide you with some lived experience from our wonderful guests of how they use the nest in practice. We are so excited for this diverse panel that we've brought together. Today we're joined by Ruth Jalloh from Capital Region Community Services, Naomi Orsillo of Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Foundation, Angelica Ojinnaka-Psillakis, sorry Angelica, representing the collaboration that is the Future Healthy Countdown 2030, Sarah Payne representing the state of Greater Shepparton's children, and Kevin Dupree of Monkey Bar Theatre. We know how important holistic wellbeing is to ensure Australia's children and young people can thrive. And we're excited to hear how these organisations are implementing the Nest to support their work with children, families and communities. But first, I'll do a quick intro to the Nest for anyone who isn't so familiar. The Nest is Australia's first evidence-based framework to enhance the wellbeing of all children and young people. It's a shared vision for Australia's children and young people aged 0 to 24. The shared vision is an Australia where all children and young people are loved and safe, have material basics, are healthy, are learning and participating, and have a positive sense of identity and culture. The Nest aims to align efforts to improve the well-being of Australian children and young people aged 0 to 24 years. The Nest conceptualises wellbeing as six interconnected domains that support each other to help children and young people reach their highest potential. To have everything they need for the best start in life, a young child or a young person needs to be adequately resourced in all 6 domains. These domains are valued, loved and safe, positive sense of identity and culture, healthy, learning, participating and material basics. So I'm going to give a little bit more detail on each of those 6 domains now. So being valued, loved and safe means that you have nurturing relationships that build loving, trusting connections with families and friends. That you feel appreciated, knowing that teachers and other adults value and care for them. Having security, to feel safe at home, in the community and online. To have future confidence, trust that the environment and the climate are being protected for their future. To have a positive sense of identity and culture is to foster a strong sense of self and cultural pride. Spiritual and cultural connectedness, which cultivates belonging and acceptance at home and in the community, especially important from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Respect and value ensuring all identities and culture are respected and valued, especially in systems with the biggest effect on children, such as education. Safe expression. Feel safe and supported in expressing identity, regardless of gender, sexuality, culture, or language. To be healthy. Holistic health means ensuring physical, mental, and emotional health needs are met. Developmental needs to provide timely care for all developmental health requirements. Access to health services, accessing appropriate services, including preventative measures. Preventative care, being able to address potential or emerging physical, emotional, and mental health concerns proactively. Material basics means having your essential needs met to have suitable, secure housing with appropriate clothing, nutritious food, clean water, and clean air. Access to services and spaces, ensuring the availability of transport, local services, for example, plumbing, and open spaces in nature. To have financial sustainability. The family has enough money for necessities, developmental tools with access to school supplies, suitable technology, and supporting sporting equipment for active participation in society. Diverse learning experiences, engaging in learning through various experiences within the classroom, home, and community. Individual needs being addressed means cater to individual learning needs. Family engagement. Families are engaged in a child's learning journey, supported and valued within it. Wide support. Encourage and support learnings in various settings, including formal education. Valued learning. Provide opportunities to participate in a breadth of experiences. Participating means having a voice, empowering children and young people to speak out, to express themselves and be taken seriously within their community and their family. To have decision making, ensure that they are involved in decisions that will impact them. To have active involvement, encourage involvement with peers and groups through various activities, including online communities, and to be active members of society. So how was the nest developed? Orsillo developed the nest in 2013 in recognition that whilst the majority of Australian children and young people were faring well against key indicators of health, wellbeing, learning, development and safety, with comparison to other Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development countries, OECD, they suggest that we're only middle of the road in terms of our performance on a range of child and youth wellbeing indicators. So with this in mind, Orsillo undertook extensive consultations in the development of the nest, consulting with over 4,000 children, families and experts. This included Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, leaders and organisations. Orsillo today continues to work with First Nations leaders to evolve the nest, to ensure that we are valuing First Nations people as knowledge holders, leaders and partners in creating conditions for all Australian children to thrive. So, how did the nest get its name? At a national summit, a young participant described the areas of wellbeing as forming a nest, stating that if every area is supported, we're able to be happy, healthy, and fly from the nest. This image resonated so well that that's how the nest got its name. So, how do you implement the nest? The nest is a free resource available under Creative Commons license. It's been designed for widespread adoption by policymakers and practitioners. It's also at the beating heart of Orsillo's work. It's our contribution to fostering a thriving future for all young Australians. The implementation of the nest should be guided by 7 operational principles and a commitment to these things. Number 1, the child at the centre. Number 2, elevating and amplifying Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowledge. 3, a long-term evidence-informed approach. 4, prevention and early intervention. 5, addressing needs and support at each stage of a young person's life from 0 to 25. 6, systemic change, focus on outcomes. And finally, 7, a socio-ecological approach to children's wellbeing. We champion the nest through our work, and one way that we can support others is including the Common Approach Professional Development Program, which has been developed and delivered by Orsillo to apply the Nest's wellbeing domains for people who work with children and young people. The Common Approach is a prevention-focused and flexible way of work to help everyone have quality conversations with children, young people, and their families about all aspects of wellbeing. It's used across education, health, allied health, community and social services organisations throughout Australia, government and non-government. The Nest has also been embraced across multiple sectors from around Australia, from schools to state and local governments to research organisations, community hubs and everything in between. The Nest was also used in the development of the Australian Government's early years strategy. Our comprehensive framework is guiding organisations all across Australia to a holistic view of wellbeing that encompasses disease prevention and early intervention. And I'm so pleased to have been joined today by 5 representatives for some of these organisations who are here to share their insights and experiences of using the Nest. So it is my pleasure to hand over now to Sorry about that. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel who are joining us today. We have Ruth from Capital Region Community Services.
Hello, and thank you for that introduction. I'm just pulling up some of my notes. Yes, I'm from Capital Region Community Services, and Capital Region Community Services provide a variety of community services across the person's lifespan with a vision of creating inclusive, connected communities across the capital region. And today I'm going to talk you through a few key ways that CRCS have used the Nest. There are 3 main ways, and if I don't run out of time, I will talk you through some secondary usages as well. So the first one is that the Nest has been built into our organisational wide social impact framework. CRCS place great importance on evidence-based framework that guides our work across all of our services. And the Nest is the framework that will be rolled out across all of our children and family services, which is, I think, an exciting step for the organisation. The second way that we've used Nest is the co-design of a bespoke wellbeing framework for our children, young people and family services. Our framework outlines the principles, practices and policies aimed at ensuring children grow up in a safe and nurturing environment. One of the unique things and quite exciting things for us is that the framework was co-designed with families to ensure that participants' voice was captured, and so also that families know what to expect from CRCS by way of wellbeing. It was also co-designed with employees from across a number of programme areas to ensure we embed a consistent framework across all services that support children and their families. The third way that CRCS have used Nest is to develop our evaluation framework. We've done a lot of work over the last few years in regards to data collection, monitoring, and being able to tell our story of impact effectively. And the Nest has supported us to develop an evaluation framework that will allow us to assess our contribution to positive wellbeing across those key areas, those key domains. And some of the secondary areas that we've used the Nest is creating a shared language across our teams. The way our portfolios are divided up within CRCS is that our children and family services, like many organisations, often sit across a number of portfolio areas. And for us, making sure that we have that joint up approach, that co-design approach, and ensuring that we have that shared language is massively beneficial for the participants that we support, for the community, and for employees as well. Using the Nest has supported us to develop a deeper connection across our program areas, and to connect teams in a number of different ways, from the co-design process of our evaluation framework or our wellbeing framework, but also in our day-to-day interactions with each other and communications across the teams. Often how we also support children and families. They often have specific touch points across a number of our services. So having that joint up approach, a shared language and a deeper connection across programs helps us provide a higher quality service to the community. It helps us review and strengthen our approach to data collection and usage. I think organisations across the sector are in different stages in regards to what data we collect, how we collect data and how we use it. The framework has allowed us to look at that in its entirety, not just across our children and young people and family services, but across our broader organisation, and look at what our data collection and usage looks like, to enable us to improve our services and to continue to provide a high quality service. It's also helped us demystify evaluation, and I think to bring the topic of social impact to life. I think sometimes frameworks and evaluations can often feel quite scary or quite daunting, but I think that using the Nest has allowed us to demystify some of that, and to support people to engage with the topic of social impact and effectively telling our story. And before I wrap up, I do want to say a massive thank you to Nicole, Barb and Tiv. We worked with the team at Orsillo to develop the evaluation framework, our wellbeing framework. And it's been a joy to work with the team to get to the stage that we're at now. A lot of learning has happened across the portfolio areas and across the teams, which I think is that's that legacy piece, isn't it? Is that developing the frameworks, implementing the frameworks and rolling them out. But alongside that, you see that culture change happen within organisations. And I think it's that culture piece that, for me, gets me really, really excited about the framework. So yeah, there's a few ways in which CRCS have used Nest. And we're excited, I think, over the next few months to be really rolling out and embedding things across our programmes in even more detail. Thank you. And I think I am handing over to Naomi.
Great. Thank you so much, Ruth. And thank you, Orsillo, for having me here today, where I am presenting to you from the lands of the Jalloh clan of the Bunwurrung people. I acknowledge them and all the lands and people of everyone in this meeting today, and pay respects to elders past and present, recognising their continuing connection to the land. My name is Naomi, and I am the knowledge broker at the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Foundation. We're a registered charity whose purpose is to improve the health and wellbeing of Australian children and young people by introducing food education during their vital learning years, so they can form positive food, health, wellbeing and sustainability skills and habits for life. For 21 years, the Kitchen Garden program has been Australia's leading comprehensive food education program, providing educators with the teaching framework, professional development and ongoing tailored support to build their capacity through supporting their skills and confidence to deliver impactful food education developed in line with the early years learning framework and the Australian curriculum. With its evidence-based approach, our unique, pleasurable food education model employs positive, strength-based messaging that encourages children and young people to understand and connect with fresh seasonal food through fun, hands-on learning in kitchen and garden classes. Evaluations of the Kitchen Garden program demonstrate success in improving food habits and skills, engaging all types of learners through hands-on reinforcement of classroom concepts across the curriculum, supporting social and emotional learning, improving school enjoyment, engagement and belonging, and supporting cultural safety, family engagement, and social cohesion. Our work supports the National Preventative Health Strategy, National Obesity Strategy, and various recommendations for universal education on food and nutrition in schools, including the 2022 Food Policy Index and the recent Australian Food Story report on the inquiry into food security. Current evidence suggests Australian children may be the first generation in history to have a shorter life expectancy than their parents, with almost 95% of children not meeting daily recommended intake of vegetables, and 1 in 4 Australian children being overweight or living with obesity. While schools are recognised as effective health promotion settings, and evidence suggests that eating habits, lifestyle, and behaviour patterns adopted during childhood endure and can have a significant influence on health and well-being in later life, schools are under increasing pressure to respond to complex issues, including school disengagement, food insecurity, decreased physical activity, and increased mental health challenges. Education presents an important opportunity to set our children and young people up with the skills and habits they need to live healthy lives. Recently, our National Children's Commissioner, Anne Hollands, in a webinar discussing the very valuable Oracy Young and Wise report, noted that along with academic achievement, wellbeing should be a KPI for the school system. Along with explicit wellbeing teaching, we also believe in supporting the co-creation and participation of children and young people in the environments where they can flourish. And for that to occur, we needed to be able to define and align on what wellbeing means. At the Kitchen Garden Foundation, we have adopted the NEST definition of wellbeing, given it is child-centric and reflective of the voices of children and young people. To understand how our program responds to the NEST wellbeing framework, we worked with Oracy to map our independent evaluation outcomes to the NEST and found that our work demonstrates impact in all 6 of the NEST domains. With Oracy's work providing a common language and approach to child and youth wellbeing, and our work at the intersection of health, education, environment and food systems, we found that our alignment with the NEST helps us communicate our holistic impact across sectors, and we appreciate that Oracy have added the Kitchen Garden program to their Wellbeing in Education webpage and their NEST initiatives page. To take this work further, we have very recently embarked on a whole of organisation approach to impact measurement, with the first step of this project being to review our current data collection and evaluation tools, ensuring that we're able to monitor and measure outcomes of the Kitchen Garden program, along with our community place-based projects across all of the holistic NEST domains. As this project progresses, we look forward to working closely with and continuing to learn from Oracy and other organisations using the NEST framework, such as our other panellists today. And with that, I'll hand over to Angelica for Future Healthy Countdown 2030. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naomi. And it's amazing to hear the stories of how the NEST is being used on the ground. And adding to that is the story of the Future Healthy Countdown. And for us, Oracy's NEST has really been, you'll learn quickly, I love stories and motifs. It's been a guiding constellation, really. It's the map that's helped us chart a clear, direct course towards a future where children and young people can truly flourish and thrive. And so we're with the Future Healthy Countdown, I'll give a little bit of a backstory to how we arrived at using the NEST as a foundation for us. To chart the kind of course, our first step was really, we didn't want to draw or create a new map. We really wanted to survey the existing landscape. And so we undertook a comprehensive review of 16 highly regarded national and international frameworks. And this analysis affirmed that there's so much strength and amazing work happening in the sector, but also critical gaps as to how we look at wellbeing for children and young people. And we concluded that actually the Oresie's Nest was so holistic and spanned a full age range for us, for 0 to 24, and was fundamentally built on the voices of thousands of children and young people and families, that it was the right choice for us to anchor this work on looking at how we actually improve wellbeing up until 2030 and drive policy actions for better change. And so with that was, I guess, the birth of the Future Healthy Countdown. And so this really cool initiative that's a partnership between Murdoch Children's Research Institute, Orasie, and VicHealth does a few things. I say a few, actually really a lot. And the first is tracking children and young people's wellbeing and improvements each year through a supplement to the Medical Journal of Australia. The next is really putting forward policy actions that's mapped across 7 domains. So we added an additional domain after consultation with young people on environment and sustainable futures. So for us, the Future Healthy Countdown has seven key central domains that we're focused on to inform policy and advocacy. And then the next part of how the Nest is featured in our work is really helping us to shift hearts and minds and form better communications and evidence-based advocacy pathways. And so I think this map is really awesome and cool. And for us, it means that we're able to present a comprehensive progress picture to different audiences and also policy actions that we believe are tangible, concrete, and achievable. I wanted to kind of add to this a little bit around the challenges that we've experienced in this journey of trying to communicate these 7 holistic domains to multiple audiences. And while we've already acknowledged that they're all interconnected and so important, one of the things that we've experienced so far is that communicating this to different audiences can be a challenge. And last year we released a supplement in the Medical Journal of Australia that was focused on participation. And we had an amazing launch about this and went to Canberra and put forward these ideas to leaders around participation and particularly lowering the voting age for children and young people. But a significant challenge was that not everyone understood what participating actually looks like, or really trusted the destination that we were heading in. And so one of the things that we realized along the way in trying to apply this framework to direct policy action is that with good science comes good communication and good advocacy. And so for us, bringing those things together has really informed how we've built the Future Healthy Countdown to be 50%, I would say, research and publishing this amazing youth-led papers, Indigenous-led papers, and general papers in the Medical Journal of Australia, but simultaneously also figuring out ways to better communicate and do advocacy. So that's the other 50% that I think makes the Future Healthy Countdown quite different. In addition to the work that we're doing in the Future Healthy Countdown is trying to understand a bit more of a public picture as to how much people support the policy actions that we're putting forward that we believe will make tangible change for health and wellbeing of children and young people. So this year, in our launch that will happen later in the year, we're actually going to be looking at some public policy sentiments as well. So we've put this forward systematically in a survey to the public to understand whether or not they support or oppose what we've put forward as the best kind of roadmap to improving wellbeing. And we hope, fingers crossed, that the sentiment is in our way, but if it's not, that's okay. It allows us to understand actually how can we better communicate then this message of these interconnected domains to a wider audience to really, again, back what the evidence is showing and what the evidence is telling us. In addition to that, we're also going to be, for the first time, publishing a countdown paper this year, which will track against 21 measures how we're going across each of the 7 domains for the Future Healthy Countdown. Some that I already know are trending in a positive direction and others that are trending in a not so positive, negative direction. And so I think that with the Future Healthy Countdown, really the Nest has been a powerful vehicle for us to streamline this approach, to go in with clear domains that we know holistically work for this population, but allow us to really navigate policy and advocacy in a clear and concise way. And it wouldn't be Angelica, without me mentioning my favorite part, which is youth leadership. Youth leadership and young people being the foundational underpinning of the Future Healthy Countdown, and actually showing that their ideas around research agendas, around the direction and transformation of the wellbeing space, them in our governance structure as well for the Future Healthy Countdown. It's really their leadership that has allowed this to become a unique and powerful model for change. And so it's a privilege that I get to work and engage with young people who have so many ideas for how we could really understand a better future for themselves and for future generations. And so just to kind of close and wrap up, one example I often point to for myself is that some of the things that I see that I grew up with are still the same story for children and young people today. And I think this is an audience that knows that already. And so really the Future Healthy Countdown, we're really trying to prick the needle better and really show where we need to drive forward on the systemic barriers that mean that children and young people don't have to run this race of life with holes in their school shoes, with the resources and material basics that they don't have, in ways that they get to participate meaningfully in the ways they identify and have the resources and opportunities that mean they're not just surviving, but they're thriving. So with that, I'd like to pass over to Sarah.
Thank you, Angelica. Thank you so much for having me, Racy. It's an absolute pleasure. My name is Sarah. I am the Data and Evaluation Lead with Greater Shepparton Lighthouse Project, which is a place-based initiative working across the life continuum through evidence-based and community-led solutions, aiming to see all children and young people thrive. Today I'm calling in from the lands of the Yorta Yorta people and acknowledge elders past, present and in future. So today I'm very proud to be representing a data collaboration called the State of Greater Shepparton Children's Report, which is the focus of what I'll share today. The State of Greater Shepparton Children's Report is a collaborative data project between Greater Shepparton City Council Best Start and Communities for Children and Greater Shepparton Lighthouse Project. This trio has worked together to create 3 versions of a population level data report over the past 10 years. And the report presents a broad range of local data from a variety of data custodians, which are publicly available. Some of them are closed data sets, and we mix it up with adding in videos and place-based solutions to really complex local challenges experienced by children and young people and families in our community. The purpose of this report is to unlock high quality data for advocacy for organisations and community members to set priorities, and to make data as accessible as possible. And we also like to use the term the demystification or demystifying data to really approach this. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to access data. In the past, the previous 2 reports were static. The working group would come together and we'd create a data report, which was awesome, but it was printed, and the day after it was printed and published on all of our websites, it was basically out of date. So hence this time around we moved to a digital report. So last year the collaboration team brought in SEER Data and Analytics to provide the technology and the much needed data analytical support for us to create the 2025 digital dashboard. The SEER team worked with us to create something that reimagined the way that we have been doing data for over a decade. It moved us to a flexible, living and breathing asset that really sets the stage for further innovation in our collaboration and beyond. In 2014, the initial State of Greater Shepparton Children's Report was created with the input and community direction that was included, and how it was laid out was based on those community consultations. From this, the report was sectioned out and was categorised under the key area domains. It worked at the time. When the group came together in 2025, we began reviewing all of the available data that we had access to and all of the previous data that was included. And we sort of found some emerging opportunities within the data that wasn't fully encompassed within the previous framework. The evolution of various data sets and changing access to information and new community stories didn't quite fit the 2014 way of thinking. So this is where the Erasing Nest came in. Lighthouse as an organisation has adopted the Erasing Nest framework across our strategic thinking, including our theory of change, our 1000 conversations community consultations, and our monitoring, evaluation and outcomes framework processes. We were really struggling at the time to find the logic between the data available and the former domains of the 2014 and 2019 reports. Over the past 10 years, the original framework had not evolved and was no longer responding to the experiences of children, young people and families in our community. So each of our organisations had really grown and adapted to the community, and the existing framework really hadn't. So like one of those light bulb moments, we realised the Nest was a really logical framework to move forward with, and it was perfect for this next evolution of the report, which was digital. Using the Erasing Nest outcomes framework was a logical anchor point for the State of Greater Shepparton Children's Report. And although there were slight deviations from the former frameworks that we had, the differences offered more space and places for growth in the data report that we had before. So like a giant board game, we moved every available indicator and data point that we had across a digital whiteboard like a big game to work out what domain within the nest and then the nesting underneath outcome that sat within it to make sure the logic was sound. Visualising the nest and the data indicators together meant we could see the gaps in the evidence we were giving our community. Not to trivialise this process because it's really awesome to do, but it was like a game. The members of the collaboration along with SEER began elevating the report, adding more data, finding different indicators, connecting with other organisations that we hadn't included previously to share their stories and find local images and videos that helped us tell the truest, most realistic and most strengths-based story about the lives of children and young people within our community. We found data and stories for almost every single Erasing Nest outcome area. The Nest didn't change the way we were really doing things. It just gave us a new perspective and showed us our work from just a different angle or different way of looking at it. The State of Greater Shepparton Children's Report has been elevated by adopting the Nest outcomes framework. It has given us both a logical scaffolding and a really common language to ensure as many people as possible can utilise data to improve outcomes for children and families, young people in Greater Shepparton. Thanks. I will be passing on to Kevin from Monkey Bar Theatre.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Sarah. I'm just going to share some slides to guide my conversation. But you can see that. I'm Kevin from Monkey Bar Theatre Company. I'm the Executive Director there, and it's a great privilege to join this conversation from maybe a slightly different angle. But first, I just would like to introduce you to our wonderful company. Monkey Bar is a professional theatre company that creates theatre for children and young people, generally between the ages of sort of 1 to about 12. We make theatre for young people as our audience, and we do this by co-creating work with them and having them central to everything that we do. We've been around for over 28 years, and we create work but also tour this work to over 60 communities all over Australia. We want young people who see our shows at the Sydney Opera House to have a great time, but to take the same quality work to a community hall in Esperance in remote WA. That drives our purpose to create access and equity of creative and cultural experiences to children. We create work that speaks to young people's experiences, and on the screen is an image of a show that premiered last week at the Queensland Performing Arts Centre's Out of the Box Festival, which is a marvellous example of how young people are central to the conversation about their well-being. Today, I would like to sort of share with you around how the arts play a role in the well-being of children, and specifically theatre, and how Monkey Bar has adopted the nest to guide our thinking in this space. If you were wondering where the green sheep is, you will just have to come and see the show. We will be touring the work to over 80 venues all over Australia in the next 2 years. So hopefully you have a young person in your life, but if not, come and see the work. It's a lot of fun. So how did we get to the nest? Measuring the impact, the intrinsic value of the arts has been in many ways a fraught exercise and a complex exercise, because how can you measure something as intangible as the arts? Having frameworks and having an opportunity to better define our impact on young people's life has been the key reason why we got to the nest. We also wanted to connect with a broader national goal for children's well-being, and we believe and know and see on a daily basis how the arts can make a positive impact on young people's lives. And we were looking for something that is of national significance, to be able to find ourselves and to place ourselves within that broader context and conversation. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Although the arts aren't explicitly mentioned in the nest, we found that the work that the arts and creativity play is deeply embedded across the 6 domains. And I'll sort of explain to you how we've interpreted that within our context. But fundamentally, we've chosen the nest to guide some of our thinking, to strengthen our internal thinking, but critically to communicate the value of the arts to young people's and children's well-being. I won't go through this in absolute detail, but there's a table on the slide at the moment around how some core concepts around how we interpret the role of what we do with those domains. Of course, some domains are more aligned and more appropriate for our work, but as I said, it feels like it really speaks well to the broad nature of engaging with creativity. But a couple of examples. We know that the spaces that we create feels safe, and typically children go to the theatre with their loved ones. It is a very special experience, and it contributes to feeling valued and loved by the act of being in a space with others. Although we don't provide direct services to children, by delivering a range of programs to remove barriers like cost and transport, our work contributes to the material basics that children need to thrive. The evidence has been shown, and the research shows that engaging with creativity is good for young people, including their mental health. Of course, it sparks curiosity and critical thinking, and the 2 domains that it connects deeply with is participation and having a positive identity and of themselves and their culture. Similar to Angelica, I think we assess that there is a 7th domain missing, which is really around creativity, imagination, and cultural expression. And that wasn't a limitation for us. It was really an opportunity for us to explore things in a different way. I would like to just sort of highlight our theory of change, and I know many of you have these very critical definitions of what you do, but I just wanted to quickly show how the nest has been the catalyst for us to describe very critically the impact that we create as a theatre company on children's lives. Briefly, there are 3 challenges that we respond to: that the benefits of live theatre are not shared by all young people, and many are excluded due to a range of structural reasons. And there are fewer opportunities for young people to develop emotional literacy, and I think that we can do a whole webinar on that. But theatre gives an opportunity and the language and the space to do so. And then also, concerningly, Australian content for children are in the decline. And we feel that this is something that needs to be responded to. So we respond to that by all of the work that we do, like I've described. The outcomes that we create fall into two streams, both cultural and social. I think you might be thinking, well, hold on, Kev, really, how does theatre, how can it have all of this sort of impact on young people's lives? We describe the process of the outcome into three phases, and I'm sharing this because hopefully this might be useful to you. That there is a spark or a specific moment which creates wonder, joy, and recognition. I think that's maybe why I absolutely adore what I do on a daily basis, because I'm surrounded by children that experience joy and wonder in the moment. Now, that might potentially make their day better, but over time, this can create a shift and can also grow empathy and confidence. The collective impact can have a ripple effect both on families, schools, and communities. Fundamentally, we hope that these experiences will develop creative and an inclusive adults that drives who we are as a society. Just a quick example of a program that for us embodies the nest is Theatre Unlimited, which is an access program where we work with 9 major charities around Australia to distribute and to remove barriers for young people to access creativity. So by removing costs and transport, by building trust with families, by reaching previously excluded children, and to show that theatre is for all children. We've used the nest to map a specific project that also is a really useful way of being able to enhance programmatically what we do. And I'll finish soon by just saying, on reflection, preparing for this, I was wondering, what did this really allow us to do? It confirmed a few things for us, that emotional safety is not separate from creative experiences. And that they happen together in theatre. And that is a big responsibility as theatre makers, and we take that very seriously. Participation includes being present, being seen, and being heard. Even just sitting in the audience member is an act of participation. Cultural identity and well-being are tightly linked. And theatre and storytelling can affirm both of those. And then more importantly, from our perspective, that the absence of arts explicitly in national frameworks doesn't mean irrelevance. It just means that we as a sector have got some work to do to make sure the next version of the framework includes arts explicitly. I'll just summarise by saying that it's been really wonderful to connect with Oracie's work. Broader than the nest, I can highly plug the framing work that the Oracie does, which really has helped us as an organisation to reframe the way that we talk about children and their lives. But fundamentally, the nest has helped us to clarify, measure, and communicate the value that we create. And it's reaffirmed what we've known for a very long time, that creativity is foundational, not extra. It is our purpose and mission to make sure that every young person has access to great storytelling and imagination, because that improves their lives as well. And thank you so much for your time, and hopefully if you needed any more information, please reach out. I would love to chat to others in this space. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm going to be bringing all our participants back on screen. We've got some questions coming through. Lots of people have some questions about how this applies in practice, but I just really want to draw on two things that I've picked up. The collaboration that's happening across organisations, but also between other organisations with the youth, with the use of the nest. That's really inspiring, and I think that demonstrates that the reach of the nest, more than just thinking about working for children and young people. It's really about that community as well, which, yeah, it was really beautiful to hear that. And Kevin, the 3 phases of outcomes that you said, I'd like to think that this webinar is contributing to that. So we've got, you know, this discussion here, that's the spark. Hopefully it's going to get some people really thinking about the ways that they can implement the nest and make changes for their communities, and therefore the shift and the ripple. So I really loved that. Thank you so much, everyone. So we do have a few questions that have come in, and so some are directed just at individuals and some I'll sort of pose to you all as a panel. So I think we might start with sort of one of the more general ones, and that's in terms of learning about adopting the nest. What were some of the challenges or any of the learnings that you might have had that you think might help pave the way for others? So it's a big one. I can see lots of cogs ticking away and the thought faces happening. Feel free to unmute and jump in if you're willing to take that one and start us off. But yeah, just sort of thinking about what would you do differently if you had your time again?
I'm happy to
I'm
go.
happy to.
You go.
All right,
Go,
Sarah, we'll start with you and then we'll hand over to Ruth.
Sorry. I think key learnings from trying to use the nest in different contexts across the organisation. I think we also created a 7th pillar, capable and empowered families and community. And I think leaning into the flexibility of the nest and allowing yourself to really go through the process of making sure it fits for your community and not being afraid of actually changing things if it's needed as well, I think is our key takeaway.
Thanks, Sarah. Ruth?
I think engaging non-service delivery team members earlier on in the process was probably a learning for us, whilst it's based on children and participants essentially. I think there's a massive overlap in regards to how we work as an organisation and our processes and our policies that may not sit necessarily in the operational space. So I think engaging those teams earlier on for us, I think, was definitely a learning. And if we were to do it again, we would get them engaged and around the table as early as possible.
Can I just jump in here as well, echoing both what Sarah and Ruth mentioned around the flexibility, and to see and hear also from colleagues that, you know, adding that 7th or additional domain is okay, and that's so fine. And I think that part of adopting the nest also requires that open collaboration and digesting the meanings of each of the domains as well for ourselves too, because we come with our own perspectives too, as well. And in the context of our work, that the 7th domain came directly out of children and young people's priorities. And so thinking about, you know, adding their voice into how, whether it's additional domains or reworking things or making it fit better for community, thinking about ways to involve them from inception rather than later.
Excellent. Thank you. Ruth, we did have a question for you, and someone wanted to know how the nest helped you to demystify evaluation.
I think one of the key things is that shared language and the way that we've worked with the team to break things down almost into bite-sized chunks as well, so that the shared language, bite-sized chunks, but people also being able to see what the framework looks like in practice for their program. So we worked a lot with the team to develop the wellbeing framework, and we pulled everybody together to do that. So it was weaved in from the beginning, from developing the wellbeing framework all the way across to developing the evaluation framework. It was a consistent narrative, so people were able to see, well, what does Nest look like within their program area? And then because we joined it up and we worked as a team, they were able to see, from an evaluation perspective, this is what it could look like, this is what it could mean, and that evaluation doesn't have to be all these complex numbers and figures and things. It can be as simple as having a conversation with somebody and speaking to children and getting their feedback through conversation, through arts within our ECEC centres, could be through any method. So it was, I suppose, working with people in that way, and that consultation, finding out what they're already doing and then making those connections to that is evaluation. You're already doing it. This is not something new. This gives us a framework and some kind of pillars to work towards. So I think those are kind of the main ways, and it's a journey. We're still on that journey. But communication and consultation and those regular touch points, I think, has definitely been a massive help for CRCS.
Thanks, Ruth. Now, I do have a question for Sarah. I'm just trying to find that one again. Someone did ask about data, and I'm a bit of a data nerd, so that excites me as well. So, there it is. Hi, Sarah. What key data sources were you able to draw on, both public and private, to measure the various nest domains at such a small geographical level?
Okay. Yes, great question. So we've drawn on like publicly available stuff, so the AEDC, education data, and crime stats. Every single data set that we could potentially access, we have tried to access. In some ways, we've had to pop in requests to actually access the data and publish it via the data custodian. So at times with great difficulty. In many instances, the data was only available at a certain geographic level, which wasn't exactly what we wanted and made for comparisons over time somewhat difficult. So we've done our best to make sure that we've tried to encompass everything that we can include logically, but also acknowledging the fact that the community are experts and we'd like to support them to be also part of the platform through stories and videos and things like that. So happy to discuss more offline with anyone that wants to go through. And shameless plug, it's on our website under data, the dashboard.
Excellent. And we will, when we send out the recording, we'll be including links to all of these organisations so that you can see some of the great work that's being done. Now, that was a great segue, Sarah, because you were talking about storytelling. And the next question is for Kevin. And someone's asked, how has the Nest framework helped you in your storytelling around Monkey Bar's social impact?
Thanks for that question. I think, first of all, it was the catalyst really of us articulating our social impact in the first place. I think we've been so focused around talking about our work from an artistic and a creative aspect that, frankly, we weren't getting cut through with policymakers and funders. I run a small organisation which relies on goodwill, grants, and philanthropy, and in many ways, it was a philanthropist that asked us, what impact are we creating on the lives of young people? There are so many worthwhile things that support can be raised to, and why the arts. I've got a friend who would say, well, Kev, you're not saving lives. And I would argue that this work has allowed us to confidently say that we do. Of course, there's so much important work that needs to be done. So I feel that the nest is a really good way of auditing and looking inwards before looking outwards. I think it allows you with a very practical way of assessing and just really answering that simple question, is that how are you improving the lives of young people? And I think that because all of us are doing this work to do exactly that. So for us, it was really a catalyst.
Excellent. Now, I've just looked at the time. We have 1 minute remaining, so forgive us. We probably may run over a minute or so because I do have one question that I'd like each panelist to answer, and we might just go through in order of screen. So, Kevin, unfortunately, I'm going to start with you. I'm sorry. But the question that I pose to everyone is, what is one unexpected outcome that you found from implementing the nest?
I think for us, it is that we've been using language where we've been resting on our laurels around being experts when it comes to engaging with young people. And I think we've challenged the way that we talk about young people. And that's fundamentally it was a bit of a shock. Just by tweaking and reframing some of the language has made a significant difference around how we think about the work that we do for children.
Thank you. Ruth?
Not that dissimilar to what Kevin has said. For me, it's definitely that culture shift and that engagement from people. I think that sometimes you look at this work as something that happens in isolation and something that happens here, but I think it's so closely connected to how we talk about wellbeing as an organisation and how we engage participants in what that means for them. So I think that's probably one of what I would choose for us.
Excellent. Angelica?
I don't want to be the same person repeating what's been mentioned, but I would just say echo language, definitely, being more clear on the fact that some of our measures, for example, are still very focused on the deficit data, deficit focused measures, and thinking intentionally about how we shift language now to what could be and what should be, and that kind of strengths focus or opportunity focus there. And again, our point again to the youth leadership is learning what readiness and competencies and things do we have to think about to actually make sure that youth leadership is foundational to the integration of the nest. I think that that's been a very big unexpected learning, and seeing where that goes is exciting.
Naomi?
Yeah, I think in my work personally, our alignment to the nest framework has really helped us, like others, with the language to communicate our impact. And it's helped with our work being recognised across sectors on other state education wellbeing panels, along with Beyond Blue's BU Wellbeing Program panel and the new Australian Council for Educational Research Wellbeing and Education model. With that common approach and common language, I feel like it's really given us clear communication strategies and clear direction to our evaluation approach project that's now in train.
Thank you. And finally, but no means least, Sarah.
Thank you. I think for me, a surprising thing has been how applicable the Erasing Nest framework has been across different facets of not just our organisation, but, with other community groups and members. So I think the diversity of how you can actually use it has been such a wonderful surprise, even across the panellists today. So lots of learning in many different ways.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of our webinar. And unfortunately, we have run over time, and I do appreciate everyone for their patience, and thank you for bearing with us while we shared those final thoughts. So I know that there's many more questions. Wish we could get through them all, but it just shows what great interest there is in the nest, and hopefully we'll be doing another one of these again shortly. So thanks to all of our panelists for your time and sharing your experiences with us. It was so inspiring to hear the varied ways that the nest is being implemented and supporting children and young people to thrive all across Australia. And Kev, you are saving lives. You know, it's making a difference. So I think you can be proud of the work that you're doing. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you found it just as valuable as we did. So we invite you to discover how the Nest can transform your organisation's approach to children and young person wellbeing, including health. We can provide consultations to assist organisations in applying the Nest in alignment with strategic goals. Please visit our website for more information. You can use the QR code on the screen or the link that's in the chat. So that brings our webinar to a close. Thank you once again to our participants, and thank you to our panel. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we wish everyone a wonderful afternoon.